Everyone, could you please be upstanding for the reading of the prayer, and I'll call upon Councillor Thompson to read the council prayer.
Almighty God, we humbly seek your blessings upon this council. Direct and prosper in its deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of the city of Boroondara. Amen.
Thank you. And I now call upon Councillor Hollingsworth to read the acknowledgement of country. Thank you.
I acknowledge the traditional owners of the original custodians of this land, including the Wurundjeri Wurrung people in the northern part of our city, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and the elders from other communities that may be here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So look, welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. Before we commence the meeting, I request that all mobile phones are turned off or switched to silent. Thank you very much. The council meeting is being live streamed on the council website, so you will be able to view the proceedings of the meeting, councillor deliberations and voting. The meeting's also being recorded and will be made available on the council website soon after the meeting. Should technical problems be encountered during the meeting will be adjourned until the problem is rectified, or if needed, the meeting will be postponed. My name is Councillor Jane Addison. I'm the Mayor of the City of Boroondara. I'll start by introducing my fellow councillors and officers. So seated to my left on the horseshoe table in the council chamber are Councillor Jim Park, Councillor Susan Biggar, Councillor Cynthia Watson, Councillor Nick Stavrou, Councillor Felicity Sinfield, and then moving round the table, Councillor Lisa Hollingsworth, Councillor Wes Galt, Councillor Di Gillies, Councillor Gary Thompson, and Councillor Victor Franco. Officers in attendance tonight: Philip Storer, the Chief Executive Officer, Carolyn McLean, Director Community Support, Daniel Freer, Director Places and Spaces, Mance Bassey, Acting Director Customer and Transformation, Scott Walker, Director Urban Living, David Thompson, Manager Governance and Legal, and Elizabeth Manu, Senior Governance Officer. There are also a number of other officers in attendance tonight, and they'll be introduced as they present their reports. So the first item is apologies. Mr Thompson, are there any items of apology for this evening?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are no apologies for this evening.
Thank you, Mr Thompson. The next item is adoption and confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting held on 25 October 2021. Councillors, can I have a motion to adopt and confirm the minutes? Councillor Thompson?
Happy to move those.
Thank you. And seconded, Councillor Sinfield.
Happy to.
Thank you. Councillors, anyone opposed to that? No, so there's no one opposed, so I'll declare the motion carried. Thank you. Declaration of conflict of interest of any councillor or council officer. Councillors and council officers, are there any conflicts of interest that need to be declared? Mr Freer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. I have an indirect interest in the item 7.4 on tonight's agenda. I live in a close proximity from a family who are associated with one of the submitting tenderers, not the recommended tenderer, and I've removed myself from the tender evaluation process and the report that's presented tonight.
Thank you. So when we get to that item, thank you. And I can't see any other lights on. So the next item is deputations and presentations, petitions and public submissions. And I believe there are none. Thank you. So item 4, informal meetings of councillors. So we have a record of the informal meetings of councillors that was presented in our business papers. Is anyone prepared to move a motion to receive and note that? Councillor Galt, you're happy to move that?
I am.
And seconded Councillor Gillies. Thank you very much. Councillors, is anyone opposed? I can't see any lights, so as there's no one opposed, I'll declare the motion carried. Thank you. So the next item is public question time, item 5. Council encourages the submission of public questions prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting. Questions submitted prior to 12 noon will be provided with a detailed verbal response as well as a response in writing. Those submitted after 12 noon will receive a verbal response if possible, but otherwise it will be taken on notice for a written response which will be provided in due course. Mr Thompson, do we have any public questions?
Yes, and through you, Madam Mayor. Tonight we have 4 questions from members of the community that were received prior to 12 noon today.
Okay, thank you very much. So the copies of questions have been circulated to councillors, and I believe none were received after 12 noon today. The questions will also be referred to the relevant council officer to provide a written response in due course. So the first question is from Mr Bill Goodenough of Camberwell, and I believe Mr Goodenough, thank you very much, he's in the gallery. And the question, at Borrandara Council meeting of 25/10/21, the adopted Borrandara Community Plan 2021 to 31 states that only 52% of people say that Borrandara is a close-knit neighbourhood, compared with 59% of Victorians. Could Council please advise the comparable figure for the previous survey and, if trending down, its opinion as to the most likely reason? So thank you for the question, Mr Goodenough. The question is allowed in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Governance Rules, as the question has previously been put in writing to a councillor or a member of council staff more than 10 days before the council meeting at which the question is submitted. So I'll call upon the Director Community Support, Carolyn McLean, to respond to this question from Mr Goodenough.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the quoted statistic is from the 2015 Vic Health survey. This specific question was not asked by Vic Health.
We're having trouble hearing, I think. Sorry? We're just having trouble hearing, I believe. Thank you.
How's that? Better? Thank you.
Perfect.
The statistic is from the 2015 Vic Health survey. This specific question was not asked by Vic Health prior to the 2015 survey, nor was it asked in subsequent surveys, which means we cannot identify a trend. However, results from the BCP Plan 2021-31 involving over 5,000 community members indicate that facilitating community connection is a priority area for our community. Based on results from other community engagement over the past year, we are confident our residents care about living in a close-knit neighbourhood and want to see this supported through investments in neighbourhoods, spaces, services and programs that will foster community connection.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I'm having trouble seeing over the desk. So look, thanks, Ms McLean. And Mr Goodenough, you'll receive a written response to your question in due course. So the next question is from Mr Ian Huntley of Balwyn North. Mr Huntley, you're present, I believe? Yes? Or online? So we believe Mr Huntley's online, and I believe I can allow it on that basis. I will allow it on that basis then. So the subject is North Oval Victoria Park, and the question is, please advise the following: the number and level of fines imposed by council on dog owners in each of the last 5 years for non-compliance with regulations at the North Oval in Victoria Park. And again, the question is allowed in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Governance Rules, as the question relates to a matter or matters regarding item 7.2 on the council agenda this evening. And I'll call on the Director, Urban Living, Scott Walker, to respond to this question from Mr Huntley. Thanks, Mr Walker.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Victoria Park is a designated dog off-leash facility. No infringements have been issued at the North Oval of Victoria Park in the last 12 months, and we don't believe, based on a search of the database, that any have been issued in the last 5 years. The focus has been on education of dog owners at this reserve.
Thank you very much. And Mr Huntley will receive a written response in due course. Now, the next question is also from Mr Huntley. The question is, please advise the following: the location of signage at Victoria Park during this period, which advised the times when tenants, sporting clubs or other parties have exclusive use of the North Oval. And again, the question is allowed in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Governance Rules, as the question relates to a matter or matters regarding item 7.2 on the council agenda this evening. And again, I'll call upon the Director, Urban Living, Mr Scott Walker, to respond to the question from Mr Huntley. Thanks, Mr Walker.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, through yourself. Signage regarding hours the sports grounds at Victoria Park are allocated to sporting clubs has historically been located on a notice board outside the pavilion on the North Oval. Recently, however, a trial has commenced whereby times of use are instead displayed via QR code on signage surrounding the North Oval and the South Oval, and this was based on feedback from a number of users of the ground.
Thank you very much. And again, Mr Huntley will receive a written response. The next question was from also Mr Huntley, but it's disallowed. And the question's been disallowed because Mr Huntley has already submitted 2 questions which have been responded to in this evening's meeting. Again, councillors have received a copy of the question from Mr Huntley, who will receive a written response from the Director, Community Development.
Sorry, correction. Yep, that's fine.
Thank you very much. So thank you, everyone. So the next item is item 6, notices of motion. Mr Thompson, do we have any notices of motion?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are no notices of motion for consideration this evening.
Thank you very much. So we'll now go to presentation of officer reports. The first item is item 7.1, rear of 32 Connell Street, Hawthorn, proposed discontinuance and sale of right-of-way road. And this will be introduced, I believe, by Amy Montalti, Chief Financial Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. This report is to consider commencement of the statutory process to discontinue and sell part of the right-of-way at the rear of 32 Connell Street, Hawthorn, as shown in attachment 1 of this report. This section of road is not used for vehicular access and is considered by officers to be suitable for discontinuance and sale. The subject section of road is unconstructed and whilst not used for vehicular access, it does provide pedestrian access to the adjoining properties at 34 and 26A Connell Street. As such, a portion of the road to the southeast corner is to remain open and available for pedestrian access as shown in attachment 1. The section of road further eastwards at the rear of 34 to 38 and adjoining 26A Connell Street was previously discontinued and sold by Council in 2012, shown in the plan at attachment 2. Consultation has been undertaken with the owners of the properties at 34 and 26A Connell Street, and no objections have been raised on the understanding that part of the road will remain open for pedestrian access to their respective properties. External service authorities and relevant council departments have also been consulted as detailed in section 5 of this report, with no objections received. The proposed commencement of the statutory procedures requires Council to give public notice of its intention to discontinue and sell the road and invite submissions to the proposal, which is detailed in the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Montalti. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Thompson?
No questions, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move a motion when the time is correct.
Okay, I can't see any lights on for questions, so Councillor Thompson, your motion?
It is the officer's recommendation, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And do we have a seconder? Councillor, who have I got next? Stavro, thank you. You're happy to second. For the sake of the mover and the seconder, is anyone opposed to this? I can't see anyone opposed. So, Councillor Thompson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just very briefly, I think the officer's report speaks for itself, and I'd like to acknowledge the first presentation of an officer report by a new Chief Financial Officer. So, thanks, Madam Chair. I'll recommend this to all councillors.
Thank you very much. The seconder, do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Stavro?
Nothing more, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? So that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. So the next item is 7.2, Victoria Park proposal to remove gates. And I believe this is going to be introduced by Paul Mitchell-Moore, Manager Civic Services. Thank you very much, Mr Mitchell-Moore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, councillors. Victoria Park is a sporting reserve located at 490 High Street, Kew, consisting of 2 ovals, north and south, and 3 playgrounds. The park is utilised by multiple stakeholders, including sporting clubs, local residents, and park visitors for the purposes of scheduled sport, exercise, and community activity. The reserve is also a designated dog off-leash area and has been for over 14 years. Approximately 5 years ago, gates were installed on the North Oval, making it the only fully enclosed sporting facility in the municipality. Since the installation of the gates, tensions escalated between the sporting clubs, who have licence agreements to use the 2 ovals, and dog owners. These tensions have further escalated during the COVID-19 pandemic and continue. The installation of the gates has resulted in many dog owners leaving their dogs unsupervised and at times not under control. On the 6th of July 2021, Council received an email from the President of the Kew Football Club advising the outcome of an online petition regarding the use of Victoria Park North Oval. The online petition sought support to remove the gates enclosing the North Oval and change to the designated status of the North and South Oval from dog off-leash to a dog on-leash. Officers do not propose any change to the designated status of the ovals, as the recommended approach seeks to maintain a balance between the needs of the community and the user groups. Officers recommend Council resolve to undertake public consultation in February 2022 to remove the gates on the North Oval at Victoria Park. Following public consultation, a report will be prepared for the Services Delegated Committee outlining the results of the consultation, considerations of the impact on public safety and assets, and recommendation on whether the gates should be removed. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mr Mitchell-Moore. Councillors, are there any questions? I can't see any lights on, so is anyone prepared to move a motion? Councillor Stavro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. And do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Biggar.
Happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So for the benefit of the mover and the seconder, is anyone opposed to that motion? Councillor Sinfield, you're opposed? Thank you very much. We'll now go back to Councillor Stavro. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't propose to speak at length about this motion. I'll first thank our officers for a comprehensive report itemising a number of issues that have been experienced. Obviously, the exposure period would give us time to understand them a little bit more as the community is consulted. But we do love our dogs here in Boroondara, and I agree with that. I have 2 Border Collies myself, and I know that they love being let off the lead to play catch. I would claim, though, that I haven't used Victoria Park for that purpose for the moment. And we are blessed with a lot of parks of this nature in our municipality. But I would like to say that, and it's an obvious truism, that dogs have also been increasingly important over the lockdown period in the pandemic, and they have contributed to balancing, I guess, a time where it would have been very difficult for a lot of us. And I do understand that, and I understand our community has strong feelings for that. And it's a healthy way for balancing our mental health. And I will place some emphasis on this, that it is critical that we are mindful that this wonderful and ancient friendship does not become an issue for our community, and as is explained in our paper at some detail. So on that basis, I would like to move the officer's recommendation as a measured approach to reach a balanced outcome, emphasis on the balance, which I hope will satisfy all of our community in the future. And I ask my fellow councillors to support that balance. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Stavro. As the seconder, Councillor Biggar, would you like to speak or reserve your right?
Happy to reserve my right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sinfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Without wanting to draw officers into debate, I wonder whether the CEO might be able to provide advice as to what the likely cost of consultation would be. I understand if you're not comfortable answering that at this point. I should have thought of it earlier.
Perhaps we'll have a quick go.
Off the top of my head, Madam Mayor, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to assist. I'm not sure what the breadth of circulation will be either, to be honest, which clearly has an impact on the cost. We can provide the data to councillors separately.
Thank you. I'll keep my comments brief, but my opposition is largely based on the expenditure of public money to do the consultation, and we all sit around this table to make decisions. Decisions are not easy, and I don't take them lightly, but we're always going to have 2 different opinions at least when it comes to matters like this. So the cost of consultation does concern me when we could just make a decision. Council has contributed to the conflict between dog owners, dogs themselves and community groups at this location through the removal of the hedge along High Street. And that was done some years ago when we replanted the large garden bed there. Dog owners used to use the informal sections further towards the northern side of the Victoria Park Recreation Precinct, between the formal sports oval and High Street. When that large hedge was removed, there was no barrier to stop the dogs running out onto High Street, and so all of the dog owners moved up onto the sports oval. So I think we need to consider what other options we provide and not limit this just to the sports oval itself. It's a very large precinct, and dog owners should have the freedom to be able to use it in its entirety without the risk of dogs or small children running out onto the road. The gates are helpful in two ways, obviously in keeping small puppies that have been purchased during the COVID lockdown period on the oval while they're trying to practice their recall skills, as it is an off-leash park, but also in keeping puppies and small children off the cricket pitch during summer, when rogue children and dogs do tend to run around and chase cricket balls, which is also unhelpful. I understand the frustrations largely during footy season when dogs do their business on the oval and it's not picked up by owners, but I do think that we have a large role to play in education there, and perhaps the provision of biodegradable dog poo bags might be of assistance in that circumstance. So it will be interesting to see what happens when it goes to community consultation. I dare say that we probably won't be much the wiser when it comes back to us.
Thank you, Councillor Sinfield. Councillor Franco?
Thank you, Mayor. My views are pretty much identically in line with those of Councillor Sinfield. I think the situation is such that we need to make a decision in relation to this matter. I don't think going out to consultation on something where we've got advice, we understand the situation, we could trial the implementation of the gates. So I do think we're at a point where we really need to move forward rather than delay, and I think the nature of the consultation, depending on how it's panned out, the nature of, say, kids using sporting fields and their geographical dispersion versus, say, locals with dogs, and how we manage that process. I think we'll come back to here, and we'll be back at this council with the same decision needing to be made. And I'm not convinced we'll get very far with the nature of this consultation. I'd just like to see a solution brought forward.
Thank you, Councillor Franco. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm of a similar view to Councillor Sinfield and Councillor Franco because there are large groups of people here with high levels of investment, and it will come down to a numbers game of who can outpoll the other. And I don't think that's going to actually find a solution, because the two groups need to be able to coexist happily together. So I think that perhaps coming up with the solution and then consulting on what that might be more helpful than gates on, gates off. Gates off could be a very temporary solution to probably a very chronic problem, but when Councillor Sinfield talked about the hedge and the use of the park and the coexistence was quite satisfactory, I think that we need to explore how it can be satisfactory again. So I won't be supporting this motion.
Thank you very much. I can't see any other lights. So, Councillor Biggar, did you want to... You reserved your... Oh, sorry, Councillor Thompson, so we'll go to him first.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm supporting this motion simply because we're giving our community an opportunity to feedback. It's ordinary business for our council to seek feedback on matters that affect our community like this. This oval is somewhat of an anomaly. It's the only one in the municipality as a sporting oval that is fully fenced and closed, and there are numerous that still dog off lead capable, and kids can certainly play on them. So because it is an unusual one, it's a bit of an anomaly, it has a lot of history to it, I think it is worthwhile getting the community's view, and I welcome that we're not making a decision tonight, but we will have to make one in the not too distant future. I'd encourage councillors to support putting it out for consultation.
Thanks, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Bigger?
Well, I pretty much would agree completely with what Councillor Thompson has just said, and I will be supporting this also because I think that this is an issue that people have strong views about, and I don't think we should not consult because we are afraid of hearing strong views. I think, though, that the points that were made by Councillor Sinfield, for instance, about the nature of this issue just highlights for me how important it is that we ask the right questions when we do this consultation. So I do believe that it's important for us to hear the community voice on something that matters, and so I'll be supporting this motion, and I encourage my fellow councillors to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll now return to, I can't see any more lights, so I'll return to Councillor Stavrou to finish the debate before we put the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Essentially, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Bigger really wrapped up nicely that it is important to seek out this consultation. It's important to give our community the ability to provide us with their thoughts, allow democracy to take its, I guess, its course in this situation. And I'm doing that and saying that in cognizant with some of the good points that Councillor Sinfield made about costs. But we should never forget also that there will be potentially ongoing costs of extra monitoring, etc. To move into a more balanced way, it is important to get that feedback from our community. So I urge my fellow councillors to support this motion.
Thank you very much. So I'll now put the motion that's up on the screen. All those in favour? So that's carried, I think. Those against? Yes, so that motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. So the next item is 7.3, which is... thanks very much, officers. Yes, so sorry. The next item is 7.3, Amendment C362, Borondara, McIntyre Partnership Heritage Nominations Adoption, and that's going to be introduced by Robert Costello, Principal Strategic Planner. Thanks, Mr Costello.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Amendment C362 to the Burundara Planning Scheme seeks to implement the outcomes of the Heritage Review prepared by Extent Heritage of the properties owned by Peter McIntyre and family at numbers 2 Hodgson Street and 25 Swinton Avenue in Kew. Mr McIntyre, Director of McIntyre Partnership, approached Council in late 2020 to request a review of the heritage significance of the properties owned by himself and his family at numbers 2 Hodgson Street and 25 Swinton Avenue in Kew. The site includes the River House, designed by Mr McIntyre and constructed in the 1950s. Council's heritage consultants have reviewed the property and recommend heritage controls be implemented by way of an updated citation for the River House at Heritage Overlay 72, with an expanded curtilage for the building and the activation of internal alteration controls, tree controls, and outbuilding and fence controls for the jetty and landing in the Heritage Overlay schedule. External paint controls already apply to the property. Heritage controls are also recommended for the Summer House and Cliff House, which have both been constructed since the River House. On 5th of July 2021, the Urban Planning Delegated Committee adopted the citations and resolved to commence the planning scheme amendment process. Officers initiated Amendment C362 and authorisation was received from the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning to prepare and exhibit the amendment. Council provided direct notice to the affected property owners and occupiers, prescribed ministers, the Kew Historical Society and the National Trust, and was granted a shortened exhibition period from 1 month to 2 weeks. No submissions were received on the amendment, including from the property owners. As such, officers have not tabled a report for consideration by the Urban Planning Delegated Committee on this amendment, and no independent planning panel is being requested. On the basis of no submissions being received on the amendment, officers are seeking a resolution from Council to adopt the amendment. Should Council resolve to adopt the amendment, officers will submit the amendment to the Minister for Planning for final approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mr Costello. Questions for Mr Costello? Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, through you, Mr Costello. How long since the last building was constructed at the McIntyre property?
Through you, Chair. I believe the Cliff House and Summer House late 90s and 2000s.
And the first property was built in the early 50s?
River House.
River House, okay. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councillor Gold?
Not at this point in time, but I'd like to foreshadow a motion.
Okay. Well, I don't see any other lights. Oh, yes, Councillor Watson? No? Okay, so I think the time might have come, Councillor Gold.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It is refreshing to see, I understand the owner was keen to have these...
The motion?
Sorry. I'd like to support the officer's motion.
Thank you very much. And we'll seek a seconder. Have we got Councillor Watson? You're happy to second?
Happy to second. And Councillor Galt, I think we all wanted to move this motion.
So, for the benefit of the mover and the seconder, do I have anyone opposed? No. Thank you. So we'll go back to Councillor Galt to speak to your motion.
Thank you again. Look, I was just starting off to say before, it is refreshing to see a landowner, and I understand he had a part in suggesting that these portions of his property had citations over them and were protected. In an era when we see so many properties divided up, subdivided for profit, it's wonderful to see these sorts of things maintained. Although, I've got to say, Cliff House isn't a great, huge piece of land, but it is a significant building, even though it's fairly modern. A number of us benefited from a visit to the site quite some months back. I'd have to say it was a magical visit. I've got to credit the foresight that McIntyre had in buying that property that wasn't probably highly regarded when he purchased it, and progressively developing a really little village for his family and left lots of trees and beautiful surroundings on that river frontage. So it's to be complimented. It's something that probably won't ever be repeated in this municipality. I'd also like to compliment the officers for persevering, because getting some of those more modern buildings through must have been fairly tricky, but I compliment them and I think it's a very worthwhile exercise. Also note that there's been no objections to these listings, so I encourage everyone, as I'm sure we will, to support the officer's recommendation tonight.
Thank you very much. The seconder, Councillor Watson?
Yes, I'll speak now. Magical really is the right description. It was an experience I'll never forget, and I'll keep my remarks to that and commend this motion to my fellow councillors.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And Councillor Watson's absolutely spot on. There was a race to move this motion, and I recognise the ward councillor may want to say some words to this as well shortly. The Emeritus Professor Peter McIntyre is a living heritage with regards to the architectural movement in Melbourne, and if not indeed in Australia. This site is now hopefully to be protected for all future generations, and it spans in excess of 50 years, particularly Peter McIntyre's career himself. And it's a living history of modernist architecture right through to modern day architecture as well. So I certainly look forward to seeing this protected and commend it to my colleagues, and I'd like our ward councillor maybe to say a few words.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Stavrou.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson, and through you, Madam Chair. I think, like everyone, we have discussed at length the importance of Mr McIntyre in our architectural heritage, and that particularly the two buildings, or the three buildings in the particular location that not only they were modernist, but they completely embedded well with the environment around them, and that's something truly to be protected and to be kept for future inspiration, and I fully commend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Stavrou. I'll return to Councillor Galt for any further comments before we put the motion.
No further comments, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. So I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? And there's nobody against, I don't believe, because everyone had their hands up, so that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next item is 7.4, contract number 2020-267, Victoria Park Q Regional Playground construction, and I believe that's going to be presented by Christine White, who is Manager Capital Projects. Thanks, Ms. White.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. The Macleay Park Pavilion is funded for redevelopment within the Council's Capital Works program, with a contribution of $14,000 also from the Burundara Eagles Football Club. Macleay Reserve is home to an active football, cricket and soccer sports clubs that have been impacted by rapid increase in female participation in sport.
Excuse me, Mayor. Sorry, just as a point of order, I wonder whether we're having the right item presented to us.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for interrupting me.
Just sitting in the wrong order on the pile.
I went on to the next order. Sorry, apologies. Start again. This contract is for the renewal and upgrade of the playground at Victoria Park Q to a new regional facility consisting of playground structures, public amenities, a learn-to-skate area, senior exercise equipment and landscape works. Construction is anticipated to commence in February 2022 and be completed by the end of June 2022. The Victoria Park Regional Playground is funded for redevelopment within the Council's Capital Works program and the Victorian Government through the Parks Revitalisation Grant for $300,000. The Victoria Park Regional Playground contributes 3 separate playground areas and shelter located in the northern playground, which are past their useful life, into one larger regional playground facility. The playground is located within community parklands amongst a fantastic tree population. It has been designed to celebrate the trees, the existing bluestone play embankment, and incorporates the community's most popular play items. Key features of the playground include an accessible path network, a nature play trail with sensory planting, Ninja Warrior-style play elements, a flying fox, trampolines, a spinner, slides, water play, sand play, a family learn-to-skate and ride pump track, 2 fitness stations and a dedicated seniors fitness station and swings. Additional park infrastructure has also been included to support the park and regional playground, including shade sails, improved picnic and barbecue facilities and accessible toilets and car parking bays and footpaths. The playground has been guided by community consultation, with the first round undertaken in November 2019 to help form the new playground design and feedback from 220 people on preferred themes. In June 2020, a second round of consultation occurred to obtain feedback on the draft playground concept, with a further 557 people contributing feedback, with some comments around loss of open space and addition of public toilets. In response to these concerns, the final design was amended to reduce the size of the playground through the removal of one of the 2 flying fox runs, a reduction in the path network and a scaled-back entry feature to increase green space. The provision of an accessible toilet with access to parking was retained to support the function of a regional play space, with amendments made to increase the setback from the streetscape as much as feasible without impact to natural surveillance. The tender evaluation panel assessed all tenders against both the qualitative and quantitative criteria and recommend Warrendale. Officers also recently undertook project assessments by visiting sites that this contractor had recently completed to ensure qualitative assessment of their works. As such, this report recommends to Council the award of contract 2020-267 to Warrendale Industries Pty for the total cost of $2,267,060.94, including GST. Approve the allocation of a separate contingency, and also approve the reallocation of funds from the playground replacement program to fund the $31,000 approximately shortfall within the Victorian Park Regional Playground. I now open it to any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms White. Councillor Stavrou, you have a question?
I don't, Madam Chair, just foreshadowing a motion when it's appropriate.
Thank you. I don't believe there are any other lights on for questions. No, so I'll go back to you, Councillor Stavrou, for your motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sinfield?
Pleased to second it.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone opposed to that motion? No, thank you. So I'll return to Councillor Stavrou to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank the officers for the work they've been doing throughout this period for getting us to this position. I must admit it's a really exciting proposition for us in Kew and Boroondara more broadly, and the only thing I'm sort of lamenting is that my kids are not young enough to enjoy it, because it looks to be quite a playground which would not only add to Kew, Boroondara, but possibly widen that as a regional playground. And on the other hand, I would sort of also like to say the extensive consultation that's been undertaken as well. It was foreshadowed that how much we have worked with the community to ensure that not only the playground requirements are met, but also whatever issues that arose throughout this process were also addressed. And one of the most important things I think that we were able to do is to actually preserve more open space whilst creating this beautiful centre playground in the area. And I think that's it's a testament to the creativity and a testament to the democratic process of actually consulting with the community and getting an outcome that's much better than what was initially envisaged. I commend this motion, and I hope my fellow councillors support it.
Thank you, Councillor Stavrou. Councillor Sinfield, would you like to add anything as the seconder?
Thank you. Just briefly to echo Councillor Stavrou's words, this park and new soon-to-be regional playground used to be in the Cotham ward until the last election, and now it's on the wrong side of the road. So I'm quite jealous that you can claim this one, despite all my consultation with the community over recent years. It's a super exciting step forward for the community, and we're delighted to have a regional playground other than Hayes Paddock in the far north. And I think it's a really exciting step forward for the community to have yet another high quality playground, particularly as we come out of COVID, to enjoy and recreate. I look forward to seeing its completion in mid next year.
Thank you very much, councillors. So I'll now put the motion that's up on the screen. All those in favour? And there's nobody against, so I'll declare that unanimously passed. Thank you, carried. So we're still with Ms White, who's going to now present 7.5, contract number 2021/133, Macleay Park Pavilion alterations. Thank you, Ms White.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I must have been super excited going early on this one, so I'll start where I left off last time. The proposed works for Macleay Park Pavilion retains the existing 671 square metre building with an internal refurbishment to most of the internals and a further 71 square metre extension for improved storage to provide improved facilities and support club use of the pavilion with the increase in female participation. This report seeks to award a contract for the required refurbishment and the extension to the existing Macleay Pavilion for a lump sum of $764,577, including GST. Council invited tenders from suitably qualified organisation from the state government's construction supply register, and 2 companies submitted tenders. The tender evaluation panel assessed all tenders against both qualitative and quantitative criteria and is satisfied that the recommended contractor, 4 Dimensions building contractor, is the best value and fit for purpose to undertake the contract works. It is noted that the tender costs were higher than anticipated due to the following factors: recent construction cost escalations, particularly with respect to material supplies in timber, steel and concrete, congested market conditions at the time, with plenty of tender opportunities available for builders, with many council, state and VSBA tenders out at the time, resulting in only 2 tender submissions. Tender timing occurred within recent industry construction lockdowns and restrictions, resulting in builders' pricing in risk for future lockdowns. Planned delivery of works across multiple stages to retain club functionality which extended the construction period, an increase in scope to include bin storage, and additional design works to support the club's application for external grants that, whilst not successful, resulted in an increase in consultant fees, reducing available budget funds. These plans can be used in future for additional grant applications and not included within this current contract. In summary, offer's recommendations is that Council resolve award contract 2021-133 Macleay Park Pavilion alterations to 4 Dimensions Pty Ltd for the revised lump sum price of $764,577, including GST, and approve the allocation of a separate contingency, approve the reallocation of funding from unscheduled minor building works to fund the shortfall, and advise to execute the contract agreement with the above contractor. I now open it for any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Sinfield?
Thank you. I do have a couple of quick questions. Wondering if you might be able to clarify for me how many tenant clubs use this pavilion, and why is it that there appears to be a contribution from one club but not others to the works?
There are 3 clubs that share this facility, football, soccer and cricket, and the contribution is from the football club. I must say I might have to defer this question to Jared Filosa because I don't know the reason for the other 2 clubs not participating. Unsure, Jared, if you know the response to that. We might have to take that on notice.
Thanks.
Take that on notice?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank
It won't ultimately affect my decision, and I'm happy to move a motion when the time is right.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we go to Councillor Sinfield's motion? I don't believe they are. Councillor Sinfield, what motion would you?
I've been muted. The officer's recommendation, please.
Thank you very much. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Watson?
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. For the benefit of the mover and the seconder, is anyone opposed? No. So look, I'll go back to you, Councillor Sinfield, to speak to your motion.
Thank you. These works are well overdue, and I know the tenant clubs are very excited about having refurbished areas, particularly with the increase of women and girls playing sport in the codes that occupy the pavilion. The Burundara Eagles have a really high level of female participation, as do the North Balwyn Cricket Club and the others in the precinct. So thank you to the officers for pulling all of this together, and I look forward to seeing the works done as soon as possible. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Watson.
Nothing further from me. I concur with the remarks made.
Thank you very much. I suspect we don't need to go back to you, Councillor Sinfield. Thank you very much. So I'll now put the motion that's up on the screen. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ms White. So the next item is 7.6, Adoption Road Management Plan, and that's going to be presented by Sean Martin, Manager, Asset and Capital Planning. Thanks very much.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, councillors. In accordance with the Road Management Act 2004 and the Road Management General Regulations 2016, Council is required to review its road management plan in the same year as we review our council plan. Accordingly, on the 27th of September 2021, Council adopted the revised road management plan, and officers proceeded to publish the road management plan in accordance with the legislation. The consultation period has now ended and Council received a total of 7 submissions. The Council report details the content of the relevant submissions and they can be found in Attachment 1. While each submission raises valid concerns that require investigation and follow-up, they do not directly impact the standards of inspection, repair and maintenance as set out in the Road Management Plan. Accordingly, we will address these concerns as separate issues. Officers recommend that we now adopt the Road Management Plan, which can be found in Attachment 2 within the Council report. I'd like to thank the councillors for their time and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Are there any questions? Councillor Gold?
Thank you. I think in your report you mentioned there was a number of ideas that have been brought forward in the public consultation, and I'd be very keen to know what your approach to those ideas were. In particular, the suggestion that we review the frequency of the resheeting of the road and replacement of curb and channel and potentially divert some of that money into improvements for our more vulnerable users. There was also a suggestion of using the works to bring about behavioural change on the road. Yet another one was moisture diversion for trees and plants and the use of tree cover to help protect the asphalt pavements, etc. And the final one I'll mention tonight was footpaths, the quicker reinstatement for public safety. If you're happy just to say that those will be addressed at some time in the future, I'd be keen to know your ideas on those. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Mayor. Absolutely, these items will be addressed and we will address them individually as we would normal cases. These items would come under what we would call our General Asset Management Plan, which is a separate documentation and detail of how we would do those works. The Road Management Plan is separate, but we will certainly address those. We will take those concerns into our Road Management Plan. As we review that, we are currently in the process of reviewing the Road Management Plan, and in accordance with the new legislation for 2021, we'll be presenting later to Council next year the Asset Management Plan, which will address these items.
Councillor Gold?
Thank you very much for that. I think some of these issues are quite strategic. Will the response you make to these come back to Council at any point in time? Because I think some of us might be quite interested in how you treat these issues.
Mr. Freer?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. A number of the items will be relevant to other strategy documents that Council is developing as well. So, for example, the bicycle strategy is one of those. Where we would look at road treatments, particularly going forward, which will of course be subject to Council review before it goes to community consultation later this year. That will be presented to Council. The other part is in respect to our renewal program through our Capital Works program in alignment of works and being able to look at as Mr. Martin has just said, in terms of bringing a range of elements together to look at them in a more strategic way rather than asset class by asset class and not seeing the connection between the grouping of assets as well. Again, subject to a Council resolution through the budget process, and we will be bringing, of course, that program to Council to review.
Thank you. Councillor Franco.
Thank you, Chair. I refer to the section 5.3 routine, sorry, 5.2 routine inspections, and I'm referring to page 30 of the PDF or page 189, not sure how to, or page 19 of the report. Gets a bit tricky. But anyway, look, I'll read out. It will probably be very obvious where I'm coming. So under the programmed routine inspections, it's asset condition inspections. It suggests that the frequency of inspection of our pavements is a maximum of once every 5 years. And similarly with paths, curb and channel, bridges, etc. Now, it could be the way this is written, but I'd just like to get an understanding if that is the frequency of asset condition inspections once every 5 years? And if so, how does that contrast? Because we've got a pretty quick reactive response, and it would suggest that we're actually flicking the owners towards a reactive approach rather than a programmed strategic approach to the asset.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your question. The condition inspections that we do are the long-term strategic treatment of our roads. So, and that's what that's referring to there for the 5-year condition inspections. And you would understand that roads, we have a life of, a life of the asset is something like 30 years. So it's a long-term strategic plan that we're working towards. Those defect inspections that we're looking at a 6-month and 12, those are risk-based inspections. So they're like trip hazards and those sorts of things. So we take this long-term view about the overall treatment of the road and how we keep it in a good condition, but we're really conscious of having that defect inspection, that hazard inspection, so that our roads and our pathways are safe for our residents as they're walking around, so that we're picking up those trip hazards, those that can cause injury to our residents. So that's the difference in the inspection regime.
Thank you. And just one further question in relation to the funding, and this could be, I referred to page 163 or section of the report, not the actual plan. Section 4, where it says specific capital works improvements will be considered as part of the capital works program, including increased spending on renewal of concrete roads in heritage overlay areas. I'd just like to get some understanding as to which components would come under the capital works program and which would come under the asset maintenance budget, and what the reference is there. So perhaps the concrete roads would be considered, if they're being rebuilt or reconstructed, capital works. But perhaps if you could explain.
Sorry. Thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Chair. Yes, the renewal or will come through the capital works program, and then the defects would be through the maintenance program. So we would rectify them through a maintenance program. The difference between the maintenance program is the capital works is the long-term strategic program, so the long-term strategic renewal of our roads, whereas maintenance is more based on those defect and risk inspections.
Okay. You've got your light off, so we'll move on. Yes. Okay, Councillor Hollingsworth, I believe you were next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure, my question may be to Mr Frere, but whoever is comfortable answering this. Look, I think the report and the road management plan is very well documented, and I think it's excellent how the community responses, and particularly lighter footprints comprehensive submission, have all been recorded, and there is the note, that there will be ongoing review. The one thing that concerns me, and this is forward thinking, it's not a problem now as such, but in 12 months, 2 years, 5 years' time, with the increase of electric vehicles, the increase of the e-scooters on our shared paths and the increase of technology, we're going to have a lot more members of our community using the shared paths, but also owners of electric vehicles obviously reversing out of driveways, using our main roads and corridors. And as an electric vehicle driver myself, what I'm noticing quite frequently is people cannot hear me. They don't know I'm reversing because the cars are silent. And as I'm coming, even into car parks or reversing out of car parks or my own driveway, I'm constantly having to stop. I have to be more vigilant because of the fact that the electric vehicles are silent. So I just wanted to ask, is it something that you've considered that we may need to adapt with new signage, but also with additional consideration to our shared paths because of the increase of the electric or battery-powered vehicles.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. The road management plan is much more of an infrastructure-based plan, which guides our activities in respect to maintenance and the operating and the management of the network of roads. The use of the roads also is obviously influenced through that as well. So things like signage and the appropriateness of signage on our shared paths and trails, and as well as the road network. We've not directly considered the need for alerting either drivers or other users of the presence of electric vehicles through that. Certainly the cycling strategy is one where the use of electric scooters is becoming more prevalent as they are used into the future, and the ramifications on the Road Management Act as well for shared paths, and the use of electric powered bikes and scooters is something that is being considered under that Road Management Act review as well. So in short, not a direct link to the road management plan as it's provided tonight, but certainly something that officers in planning for future works, and particularly around shopping strip activity centre improvements, is something we will need to consider going forward.
Thank you for that. As I said, the management plan I think is very comprehensive and well documented. I just wanted to foreshadow that it's something that I'm sure we're all mindful of, that I would imagine we can implement as a need-to basis. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Stavrou. Oops, yep, that's it.
Long time off the equipment, I think. Thank you, Madam Chair. The question that I'd like to ask is, I guess, goes towards future efficiencies, because I would imagine the technologies and the techniques that you're using are well trodden. We've been using this type of roads for a long time, of how often, but it was foreshadowed by some of the submissions that AI or machine learning could be used going forward, and I wanted to sort of hear a little bit about your thoughts about that, particularly since we've got natural vehicles that are seen all of our streets every week, i.e. the rubbish trucks that go through it, and the potential to actually get a just-in-time management a little bit more frequently and more targeted.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Chair. This is an area that's kind of dear to my heart because I do come from a GIS background, and so obviously we have been using sensory technology for many years in a GIS space. We have looked at this technology, and it certainly is an advancing technology. We've looked at it in trying to identify assets and picking up assets from vehicles and from imagery and those sorts of things. At the moment, all of our condition ratings are done through vehicles, so we drive all of the roads and we do sensory information, infrared into the road base to determine the actual impacts. It might look nice on the top, but the actual underneath of the road base is not in good condition, and that does feed into our condition rating. As these technologies come on, we will certainly continue to look at those. We're looking at doing cameras on waste trucks and those sorts of things to pick up, because we do have a lot of people out on the road every day in different areas. So we see the benefits of this. When we were looking at asset capture based off waste trucks previously, there was issues around the processing of that imagery and the time taken to process that imagery, and we would have had to have sent it offshore. There was a lot of issues around getting the imagery off the waste trucks and all. So that was probably, we looked at that about 18 months ago, and we decided at the moment, not quite the right time, but it's certainly a space that we're definitely keen to look into, to keep looking at, and we will adopt it as soon as we see the benefits, the cost analysis, the benefits of that. We will certainly delve into that space as quick as we possibly can.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, through you, Madam Mayor. We've obviously just adopted our Boroondara Climate Action Plan, and one of the themes was a circular economy. I see no reference in this policy, and it may not need to be referenced in this policy, but with regards to recycled plastics in asphalt. Is it intended to be in here, or is it a separate program, or how is it to be referenced?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. It's not intended to be referenced in this document, but it certainly forms part of our maintenance and our resheeting and our capital program, particularly around the use of recycled glass as road base. And Alex Fraser is leading, as a company in Victoria, is leading the way in terms of processing glass into road base and plastics as well, and printed toner cartridges and the like as well. We've been making use of that material for some time as well locally across the city, and has been proving to be well lasting as well in practical application.
If I can just have a follow-up. Is it prudent to have a reference about the circular economy and Council's intentions in this plan, even though it's not specifically referenced?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. We think that it's at this stage it's more appropriate that it is picked up in our asset plan across all of the different classes of asset, which will give us leverage, I think, through the climate action plan activities as well across a stream of different asset classes, rather than it just being focused on road management at this point.
Thank you.
You're happy with that response, Councillor Thompson? Thank you. Now, I can't see any more lights, so is someone prepared to move a motion? Councillor Hollingsworth?
Yes, as recommended by the officers. Thank you.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Gillies? Thank you. Is, for the sake of the mover and the seconder, is anyone opposed to that? No, so I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I think we've had a fairly lengthy conversation about the merits of the plan and also thoughts for the future. So I just wanted to thank the officers for putting forward the report and for all their due diligence in providing the plan to us this evening, and thank all the community for their contribution. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Councillor Gillies, you...
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add my thanks for the work done and to concur with Councillor Hollingsworth's comments.
Thank you very much. I presume we don't need to go back to you to close, Councillor Hollingsworth, so we'll now put that motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you very much. So the next item is 7.7, Union Road level crossing removal for community consultation, draft urban design framework, a visioning document, and I believe that's going to be presented by Andrea Lomdale, Senior Transport Planner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Councillors, thank you very much for your time. Tonight we present the draft Union Road Surrey Hills level crossing removal urban design advice and seek council approval to share the document with the community. To share the document with the community for consultation purposes. As part of the Union Road and Mont Albert Road level crossing removals, the Level Crossing Removal Project, LXRP, has set aside areas for new open space between Union Road and the Surrey Hills Station car park. The LXRP has not progressed designs for the open spaces, despite noting designs will be developed on several brochures and leaflets about the project. To help inform the design of these spaces and ensure the community's views are at the centre of the design, Council engaged multidisciplinary urban design firm Lat Studios to develop an urban design advice report for the area. Lat Studios developed, in conjunction with council officers and the community, a draft concept design for the open space and also considered nearby pedestrian and cycling paths, interfaces with surrounding areas and community facilities. The council-run community consultation held in September 2021 to inform the draft urban design advice was well received by the community, and their feedback is provided in attachment 2 of tonight's report. It has also been incorporated into the draft urban design advice. The community is excited by this opportunity and keen to ensure the new designs are thoughtfully considered,
provide flexible, comfortable, well-connected and safe green spaces that can be used by all ages and abilities and for multiple purposes. The draft urban design advice includes the community's vision for the open spaces, a refined concept plan and 3 guiding principles: connectivity and legibility, vibrant community, open space and sustainability, along with multiple objectives and supporting guidelines. It also discusses how the Box Hill to Hawthorn strategic cycling corridor could be accommodated in Sunbury Crescent, along with vegetation to screen the rail trench for residents. We are seeking council approval to share the draft urban design advice with the community to seek their support and any further feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms Lomdale. Are there any questions for officers? Councillor Thompson.
Thanks through you, Madam Mayor. Will we be sharing this with the LXRP at the same time and seeking their feedback, or are we waiting until we've done our second report?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mayor. We will be seeking, we'll be sharing the draft report with the LXRP, and we feel it's important to do this at this stage.
Thank you. Councillor Gold, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I might not have read the report in enough detail, but I presume within the concept that you present, is there provision, detailed provision for the Box Hill to Hawthorn cycling shared trail?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mayor. Yes, there is certainly provision for the Box Hill to Hawthorn cycling trail. Part of the trail is being delivered by the LXRP as part of the project, and we also sought feedback from the community on a potential extension along Sunbury Crescent, and basically sought feedback on the things that were important to the community.
I'd be keen to know where that is, but I think it's more appropriate I deal with that offline.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there is detail in the report too. Yep. Thank you. Councillor Watson.
No questions. Happy to move motion at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Councillor Franco.
Thank you. I note that there's no reference to the design or inclusion of any above-ground car park, which I welcome, but I'd just like to understand why that is.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor, I may defer to Mr Freer.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Car parking has been a constant consideration of council in its submissions to the LXRP to date, and particularly in respect to the lack of car parking as part of the project replacing the existing car parking. At the time of the consultation for the initial consultation with the community in respect to this, the council was not in a position to understand what any additional car parking at that time in September of this year it would be required, other than continuing our advocacy to say that a replacement of like-for-like quantity of car parking without any design had been put to the LXRP at that time.
Happy with? Yep, thank you. No, I can't see any other lights on, so Councillor Watson, you foreshadowed a motion?
Yes, the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. And Councillor Thompson, you're happy to second?
Very happy to, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, no? Okay, for the benefit of the mover and the seconder, is anyone against the motion, in opposition to the motion? No, so I'll return to Councillor Watson to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And note that this is in the mailing ward, and we'll keep my comments brief because you may want to add some thoughts. I support and commend the officer's recommendation. The community has expressed a great deal of dissatisfaction with the engagement that they've had so far with the state government, and in speaking with them, I hear a great deal of frustration. So I welcome what Council is doing and hearing the voices of the community, and I look forward to the advocacy plan coming forward in early 2022. So I commend this motion to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll speak just briefly to this as well. Excuse me. I think this plan, because I was happily involved in a number of the workshops with the community on this with yourself, Madam Mayor, earlier this year. This plan, absent of the car park that Councillor Franco spoke about, actually provides everything that the LXRP doesn't actually provide at the moment, and that's a civic space for our community along Surrey Hills, along Union Road, an activation space, an area that's really going to complement the civic pride of that area. I look forward to the LXRP's response and obviously our further advocacy with regards to our residents in that area. And to pick up on Councillor Goltz, there are a number of user groups heavily involved with the bicycle feedback into the Hawthorn Box Hill Trail, and that's been very well crafted through this urban design response as well. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Look, I might say a few words and then hand back to Councillor Watson. So I think the most important thing is to express the gratitude the community feels for the involvement officers have afforded them with this. It really has allowed them to feel heard. And like Councillor Thompson said, we were at the sessions and heard the enthusiasm the community has for what was presented to them. And what was presented to them is fairly similar to what we've ended up with, a little bit of modification. And they were very positive about it and did very much emphasise how this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to provide something very special for the community. And certainly it seems that what we're being presented to is a wonderful reflection of what they said was important to them. So I certainly will look forward to hearing their responses, and again, thank the officers for all the work they've put in on this. It's been a fairly stressful journey, I think, for the community and the officers, but this is a very positive part of it. So I'll return to the mover, Councillor Watson.
No further comments other than to echo your remarks and thank the officers for their good work.
Thank you. So I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So our next item is general business. Councillors, we have, I believe, Councillor Sinfield, you may have an item of general business.
I do, thank you. I, in fact, have two.
Right.
Wanting to, hopefully we don't have a yearly allocation of general business items, but with your indulgence, I do have two matters to raise in general business, that being a brief revisitation of item 7.5 in the report that we heard earlier. And perhaps I seek the advice of the CEO or governance on the mechanism that might be appropriate to include acknowledgement retrospectively of the federal government in the report that was presented to us, or perhaps as a postscript in the minutes may suffice. I've since learnt that the $14,000 contribution that was thought to be a contribution by one of the clubs is in fact from the federal government via one of the clubs who sought a grant. The Burundara Eagles Football Club Incorporated received a grant from the Australian Federal Government Department of Health under the Community Development Grants and Female Facilities and Water Safety Program. I'm not sure how they all go in the same sentence, but it may be a federal program.
Mr. Storer?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we will make a note of the minutes to reflect what you've just requested.
Thank you. And in doing so, can the appropriate flags be put on this so that the relevant invitations are arranged come the reopening of the facility next year to thank the federal government for their contribution?
I think that's been noted. Thank you. And you had a second item?
Thank you. Yes. As Chair of the Community Safety Advisory Committee, I would like to acknowledge that the City of Boroondara is currently supporting the presently occurring 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, which runs from the 25th of November to the 10th of December. And that is to recognise the United Nations 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and City of Boroondara will host a range of free community activities and events to strengthen the community's response to recognising and responding to gender-based violence. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been reports of increased intensity and frequency of domestic and family violence across Australia. And in our city here in Boroondara, we saw a 16% increase in reports of domestic and family violence in the year ending March 2021. In the same period, Eastern Domestic Violence Service, EDVOS, saw a considerable number of first-time reports, with 60% of victim survivors engaging with the service during Stage 3 and Stage 4 of Victoria's lockdowns, compared to 30% pre-pandemic. So I thank the council officers who have arranged the various events and encourage my colleagues and the community here to share those messages on social media and broaden the reach that the City of Boroondara has through each of our relevant networks to stand up against gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sinfield. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, it is with great sorrow that I advise there's been the passing of an iconic sports legend from Boroondara. So as on the screen now, the feature is of Brendan Stroud, who was an ambassador and advocate for all-inclusive sport and, as you can see, wheelchair AFL. So Brendan, as a young adult, was paralysed through a car accident and struggled for many years to rebuild his life, his purpose in life, and wondered how he could support his family. So through liaising with the Disability Advisory Society or Committee here with Boroondara and Disability Sport and Rec, that Brendan and Richard Amon came to Boroondara and put to us a concept of introducing AFL wheelchair sport within Boroondara. So in 2018, at that time, Councillor Park was the mayor. It was supported by Council to develop an inclusive community that can be enjoyed by everyone, ensuring that sport and spaces and places are accessible. And the focus during the 2018 year was to develop Boroondara's facilities to be all-inclusive, all-ability, and we actually started to look at all of our pavilions to ensure that they were adapted to support female participation, but also all-ability participation, and that's been a program that I'm very proud to say we've been working on since 2018, and we have come a long way. But look, just to reflect on Brendan, I'll just talk a little bit about his journey. Brendan was more than an ambassador for AFL wheelchair sport. He was a friend to many. He recruited participants to play in the sport. He was a mentor, he was a coach, he was a shoulder to cry on, he was an ear to listen to. He was a very avid Collingwood supporter, and he actually advocated with the AFL where 5 teams supported the inaugural season of wheelchair sports. And Boroondara Council hosted the games at the Boroondara Sports Centre, which we continue to do today. And ironically, yesterday was the 4th season grand final. Collingwood won the grand final, and sadly, Brendan also passed yesterday through his long battle with cancer. So my thoughts go to his family, his wife Natalie, his children, his grandchildren, and all of his close friends and colleagues through AFL sport. And a lot of us here through Boroondara have had a very strong relationship with him and the AFL team, making the AFL wheelchair sport such a wonderful success. And I just wanted to obviously reflect how important this man was He will never be forgotten, and he is instrumental in bringing AFL wheelchair sport to Burundara. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Franco.
Thank you. I'd like to raise consideration of social and environmental issues in council reports. The council report pro forma includes a standard section on social and environmental implications. And I note, however, that the responses generally provided in council reports, particularly those relating to construction projects and tenders, is generally, or might generally be described as superficial, and perhaps it reads as if it's little more than a tick and flick exercise. And for example, in today's reports, I think I won't read them out, but the sections, if you consider the pro forma sections in 7.4 and 7.5 as an example, and I simply ask that management review the way the information is provided in the section on social environmental issues to provide detail on, say, for example, environmental design and construction issues in a more meaningful and a considered manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I seek some guidance from the officers whether that's something that would need to come to us as a report, or can we take that on board?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we're very comfortable looking at a more detailed response. That's not a problem.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson.
Just very quick, just to follow up on Councillor Franco's, when's our sustainable buildings policy review coming to council?
Does somebody know the answer to that? Mr. Freer?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have the date immediately off the top of my head, but I can certainly provide an update to all councillors in regard to that.
Thank you. Okay, I can't see any other lights on, so we'll move to urgent business. Councillors, are there any items of urgent business? No, thank you. So item 10 is confidential business, and under this we have 10.1 Age Services Reform Update 2021. Councillors, I'm in search of a colleague moving the following motion: that, in accordance with section 66(1) and 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting be closed to the members of the public for the consideration of the agenda item titled 10.1 Age Services Reform Update 2021. This agenda item is confidential information for the purposes of section 3.1 of the Local Government Act 2020, because the item is council business information, being information that would prejudice the council's position in commercial negotiations if prematurely released, and that's under 3.1a. So do I have anyone who's prepared to move that motion? Councillor Gold?
Happy to so move.
And seconded, Councillor Sinfield.
Happy to.
Thank you. Is anyone against that motion? No, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Thank you, Councillor. That's carried. So I declare the meeting closed to the public. To the members of the community watching tonight's proceedings, the live stream will cease while confidential business is being discussed, and we'll reopen the meeting to the public at the conclusion of the discussion. So would members of the gallery please depart, and we'll call you when the meeting is reopened to the public. Thank you. Back on. Thank you very much. So to members of the community watching tonight's proceedings, welcome back to the live streaming of the council meeting. This is the end of council business for the evening. So before I close the meeting, I want to thank all of you who have joined us this evening and wish you and your family good health and to stay safe. I declare the council meeting closed, so goodbye for now. Thank you.